At 18:25:27 UTC, something reaches up from a Boeing 777 and taps a satellite. Not a mayday, not a voice, not even a human message. Just a sterile burst of data, an automated hello that says, "I'm here. I'm online. I want back on the network." Investigators have a name for it: a logon request, a satellite system waking up and reintroducing itself like nothing happened. But something did happen, because this logon isn't supposed to occur in the middle of a normal flight. It's the kind of thing you see after the system has been powered off or reset or lost its brain for a moment, and then comes back. The key box here is the SDU, the Satellite Data Unit. Think of it like the plane's satellite modem. If it's alive, it can exchange periodic background signals with a ground station through a satellite. If it's dead, the sky goes silent. And for MH370, the sky did go silent. Then suddenly, at 18:25, it speaks again. Here's why that matters. That one tiny digital cough suggests a power interruption, a moment when the SDU lost power, then rebooted, then took about a minute to send that logon request. And that instantly fractures the timeline into a question investigators still can't close. If the SDU rebooted, when did it lose power, and why? Because the SDU isn't a random phone you accidentally restart. On this aircraft, a reboot implies something physical or systemic: a deliberate interruption, a cascading electrical event, a loss of key inputs, or an unusual aircraft attitude that breaks the link. The official analysis has repeatedly pointed to power interruption as the best match for the specific timing and behavior of the logon sequence. But that conclusion creates a new problem, one that doesn't just add mystery, it rearranges time. Because if the satellite unit was rebooting at 18:25, it implies a before, a window where it was not operating as expected, a gap, a silent corridor, and in that corridor sits the question nobody can answer cleanly. Was this reboot caused by the aircraft or by a person? If it was accidental, then the aircraft suffered a systems disruption at exactly the wrong moment. A failure that just happened to line up with the wider disappearance. If it was intentional, then someone knew enough to disrupt satellite communications. And then, for reasons we still don't understand, allowed it to come back online. Why bring the satellite unit back? Why not keep it dark? Why risk leaving a trace at all? Because this isn't just a ping. This is an event with a mechanical fingerprint. And fingerprints tell time. This logon implies sequence. Power restored to system boots, to about approximately 60 seconds to logon request. So now investigators aren't just asking where the aircraft went. They're forced to ask something colder. What happened to the plane in the minute the satellite system woke up? And what happened in the hour before it did? Because once you accept that reboot is real, the disappearance isn't one clean vanishing. It becomes a two-act event. First, the aircraft goes quiet. Then, something restarts. And from that moment forward, the plane will leave behind a faint breadcrumb trail, hour by hour, until the final silence. And in Chapter 2, we're going to rewind to the exact moment the night begins, and mark the first cut in the timeline that makes that reboot possible. But before we do, hold on to 18:25:27, because later we'll test what it implies. And the test narrows the window in a way that's hard to ignore. If you're the kind of person who hears one unexplained timestamp and immediately wants the full chain of cause and effect, you're in the right place. So here's the deal. Tap like. It tells the algorithm this is worth resurfacing. And subscribe if you want to keep building this evidence board together, case by case, detail by detail, because the next chapters don't just recap. They cross-examine. And I want your eyes on this. When you hear the reboot detail, what does it suggest to you? System failure, human action, or something else entirely? Drop your most relevant read in the comments. I'm pulling viewer theories into a follow-up evidence montage. It starts like any other night flight. Cabin lights dim, seatbelts click, a few last texts go out, landing in the morning. And then the aircraft lifts into the dark over water where the horizon is basically imaginary. Up front, procedures, checklists, routine callouts. On the radio, the voice of civilization, controllers handing the aircraft from one sector to the next like a baton in a relay. And then comes the moment nobody hears, because it sounds normal. That phrase is supposed to mean leaving one controller, checking in with the next. It's a doorway, a handoff, a perfectly ordinary transition. Minutes pass. Then something strange begins. Not with a bang, but with absence. First, the aircraft stops talking in the way the public imagines. No more routine radio calls. But more importantly, the aircraft stops identifying itself to secondary radar. The transponder output disappears. This is the part where your brain wants to pick a single explanation. A failure, a fire, a lightning strike, a circuit breaker, a mistake. But here's the problem. Aircraft don't usually fail neatly. Real failures are messy. They cascade. They throw warnings. They light up panels. They leave noise. This is clean. A door closes, then another, and still, on primary radar, the aircraft is there. A silent shape, reflecting energy back like a ghost caught in a searchlight. Now the timeline starts to feel wrong, because instead of continuing toward its destination, the track bends. Not drifting, not wobbling. A turn. A deliberate-looking change in heading that carries it away from the expected route. So ask yourself, if you were in the cockpit, what would make you do that? A sudden emergency that forces you to divert. A navigation error? A fight for control? Or a decision made in calm air? Because each answer paints a different human story inside that sealed flight deck door. And outside the cockpit, behind that door, there are people who don't get to vote on the plan. They feel only the consequences. A change in engine tone, a subtle bank, a shift in pressure in their ears, a tray table rattling as the aircraft rolls into a turn. If something catastrophic had happened, you'd expect a call, a panic message, any hint that the crew is fighting time. But the timeline doesn't give you that comfort. It gives you silence, paired with motion, a handoff, then a gap, then a loss of identity, then a turn. And somewhere in this sequence, this is the haunting part, the aircraft becomes two things at once: a machine following a path, and a mystery stripping away its own fingerprints. This is the window where theories multiply, because if you believe it's mechanical, you have to explain why multiple systems go quiet without triggering the kind of chaos that spills into the radio. And if you believe it's human, you have to explain something even harder. Why leave any trace at all? Why not disappear completely? Why let the aircraft remain visible on radar long enough to show a turn, a route, a decision? Now zoom out for a second, because while the aircraft is turning back across the night, there's a quieter truth that investigators later have to face. Even when the plane stops talking to air traffic control, it may still be whispering to other systems. Not voice, not transponder, something else. A network the average passenger never thinks about. A satellite link designed to keep data flowing over oceans where ground towers can't reach. And here's the knot in the timeline. If that satellite unit later performs a clean log-on, then at some point before it speaks again, it had to be gone, powered down, interrupted, reset. So this quiet phase isn't just a gap in communications. It's a corridor in which something changes state. Think about that. A modern jetliner doesn't become invisible by accident. It becomes invisible because systems fail, or because someone makes choices, and every choice takes time. The question is not only what happened, it's in what order. Because if the order is wrong, the whole story collapses. If the aircraft turned first, then the transponder went quiet. What does that imply? If the transponder went quiet first, then the turn came. What does that imply? And if the satellite unit later rebooted, what does that imply about everything in between? This is where the investigation stops feeling like a search and starts feeling like forensics. Not, where did it go? But what did someone do, and when? Because once you accept that a reboot signature exists later in the night, you're forced to treat this early silence differently. Not as dead air, as setup. As the first act of a timeline that may have been altered, intentionally, or by a chain reaction we still don't know how to model. And that brings us to the system itself, the one that doesn't care about intentions, doesn't care about politics, doesn't care about rumors, only what the hardware did. To understand why that one hello matters, you have to stop thinking like a passenger and start thinking like a network engineer. Because out over open water, the aircraft isn't just a plane, it's a node, a moving computer, a flying router. And somewhere inside it is a box that quietly keeps time with space. That box is the Satellite Data Unit, the SDU. If it's powered, it periodically exchanges short bursts with a ground station through a satellite. Not messages you can read, not a ping like a sonar pulse. More like a heartbeat check. Are you there? Yes. Keep your slot. Copy. Here's the twist. Those bursts carry timing. And timing is everything. Because even if you don't know the aircraft's exact location, you can still measure two things. 1. How long the signal took to travel. 2. How the signal's frequency shifted as the aircraft moved. This is where the investigation turns cold and mathematical. The time delay. If a radio wave goes from aircraft to satellite to ground, the travel time depends on distance, not the exact place, but a range. That range becomes a ring on the Earth, somewhere on this arc. The frequency shift. Now add motion. If the aircraft is moving toward or away from the satellite, the signal's frequency nudges up or down. That doesn't give a neat GPS pin either, but it can tell you if the aircraft is generally trending this way or that way. North-ish, south-ish, closing, receding. Now, here's the part most people miss. These aren't deliberate transmissions from the crew. They're automatic background interactions, routine, boring, which means if the SDU suddenly performs a full log-on sequence, it's not just checking in. It's behaving like a device that had been gone and is now returning. That log-on is a ritual, a startup handshake, and like any startup, it leaves fingerprints. It takes a short, predictable amount of time. It happens in a defined order. It requires power to have returned. So when investigators see that log-on, they don't just see a timestamp. They see a timeline inside the machine, a before and after. Power was interrupted, then restored. Then the SDU did what devices do when they wake up. It tried to rejoin the network. And if you can estimate how long that boot sequence takes, you can work backward. Not to a location, to a moment, a window, a narrow slice of time where something changed. Now, ask the uncomfortable questions. If the SDU rebooted because of an accident, what kind of accident cleanly interrupts power to that system and then returns it, without triggering an immediate catastrophe? If it rebooted because of a deliberate action, what kind of action interrupts that power and then allows it back? And here's a quieter detail that makes this worse. A reboot is not a permanent shutoff. It's temporary. It's the difference between silence and silence that ends. So whoever or whatever caused the interruption either didn't intend for it to come back or didn't realize what coming back would reveal. Because once it comes back online, it starts leaving breadcrumbs again. Not a trail you can see with your eyes. A trail you can model, arc by arc, hour by hour. And that's where the system gets almost cruel, because the satellite doesn't care about motive. It doesn't care about human stories. It cares about physics, distance, time, frequency. It records a whisper of the aircraft's relationship to the satellite, and that whisper can be turned into geometry, which means the SDU's hello isn't just "I'm back," it's "I was gone." And that statement, if true, forces the entire disappearance to become a sequence of states. On, off, on again. Now here comes the trap investigators ran into. A log-on timestamp feels like a solid anchor, but it's only solid if you know why it happened, because the same signature could come from very different realities. A manual power interruption, a system fault, a wider electrical event, a temporary loss of conditions. The SDU needs to function normally, and those realities don't just change what happened. They change when the key event began. If you misread the reboot, you misplace the first domino. And if you misplace the first domino, you build the wrong story. So what do investigators do? They interrogate the log-on like a crime scene. They compare the timing pattern to known SDU behavior. They examine whether the frequency shift matches a normal cruise state or something stranger. They ask whether the aircraft could have been doing something, climbing, descending, turning, that would distort the signature. Because the reboot doesn't just say the SDU woke up. It hints at what the aircraft was doing as it woke up. And this is where the detail becomes a blade. Because if the reboot suggests the aircraft wasn't in stable cruise, then the reboot isn't just a technical event. It's a physical one. A moment the airframe was living through. Now we're not talking about an abstract timeline anymore. We're talking about a living cabin, bodies, gravity, breath. A machine that, for a brief interval, may have been in a state that leaves no radio call, but leaves a mathematical bruise in the data. And here's the cliff edge.